Did you set a New Year's resolution and already it's feeling heavy and icky? Or maybe you set a goal that you were going to do and you're all ready to ditch it, even though it's coming to the end of the first week in January 2025. Well, I think that there's another way, and I'd like to share it with you today, a way for you to shift into a more intentional way of making change so that the impact that you have in your life is one that lasts beyond a single goal that starts on the 1st of January. Welcome to another episode of Coming to Your Senses, the podcast where you get the opportunity to look at how you can navigate the labyrinth of the mind and emerge victorious. I'm your host, Jules Wyman, and for me, I know that there's a lot of societal pressures. There's a lot of social media posts, even mainstream media posts that are pushing this whole new year, new you. And it's usually aimed around the physical body or the finances, but there's other stuff in there, whether it's around work or career or your business or relationships or many other facets of those things. But what can happen is people can set a goal and very quickly toward the beginning of that year, usually within the first 2 weeks, it doesn't seem to work. Either they've not really engaged with it, they've given up on it, it wasn't right in the first place, it was actually a goal that they decided to do because it fit with the other worldview that they were living by. But actually there's a different way of being, and I know that setting pressurized goals is something that can trip us up because I've been there myself. So for many years, I used to, like many of us, be like charging towards the 31st of December, all ready to go, right, the next year I would quote unquote fix my life, and everything was going to be different. And for me, it was always around my body. You know, I was going to lose weight, I was going to get fit, I was going to look better. It was always around finances as well. And that very often related to whatever work or business that was happening at that period of time. But what I noticed is that there was a lot of goal setting around the amount of times I was going to exercise, the type of food, how much money I was going to earn. And they're great goals, and they're very measurable, and there's a lot of time factors that I can put in there. And I personally felt a lot of pressure as a coach that that's what I should be doing. I should be setting these goals. But then very quickly, January the 1st would come around, and that first week, getting over that time off, whatever it was that we'd been doing, and then heading back into the working week. And what I noticed fairly quickly is something would happen, which meant that I couldn't get up as early as I was meant to be doing to do that exercise. So it's fine, I'll do it later on that day. But then I was too tired because there'd been a lot going on at work, and therefore I'd come in later, and therefore I was grabbing food. And there was just lots of things that would start to get in the way that would make it a bit of a challenge. And then I began to feel like a failure because I'd set these goals, and I'm a coach, I should know what I'm doing, right? I'd set these goals and I wasn't achieving them. They were hard. I felt very pressurized. And then I just end up giving up on myself and feeling like crap, quite frankly. And that was until I shifted. And it came about when I started to look at why was this happening? Because I realized it wasn't just me. It wasn't just me that was experiencing this. And with the best will in the world, setting out these goals, one of the reasons that they weren't working is because I had no intention behind them. I didn't actually understand what they were for, the purpose behind them. I just thought it was something that I had to do because the world at large was saying that that's what's going to make you a great person. You're going to feel even more successful and happy and joyous and yada, yada, yada when you achieve these goals. So I wanted that happiness and the success. So therefore I should achieve these goals, or I should set these goals. Now, how I perceive it is they're very directional. They're very focused. They're very outcome driven, and that's great. They can be measurable. They can be timely. You can put all of the things in place there. But if you haven't got your intention, your clarity on that intention from the outset, then that's where your motivation can waver, because actually there's no clarity as to why you're doing that thing. And if we don't have the clarity of why we're doing those things, the actions underneath, which in this instance are the goals, because the goals become those action steps and the tasks that you can do to attain the intention, that becomes meaningless.
If you've listened to the first episode of Coming to Your Senses, you'll know that in the early 2000s, I experienced a breakdown. I tried different therapies, but it was coaching that truly helped me transform my life. Initially, when I discovered coaching, though, I couldn't afford it. And it was a kind soul who sponsored me not only to have coaching, but also to train and become a coach. And my promise to them was that I would pay it forward. And I've done that in many ways over the years, initially through social media and private Facebook group called Confidence Revolution, and also through Coming to Your Senses, the podcast. But it triggered for me a passion to really want to make and create a secure, supportive space for people to be able to come together and have conversations that transform their lives. So I created the Conscious Conversations community. It's a group where we meet on more than once a month. We have a focused theme, which is guided by the community and facilitated by me. There's hundreds of hours of learning and resources and materials to help you transform your life in a like-minded space. Because I get passionate about it and because this was my promise to pay it forward, I'm offering you the opportunity to trial it for £1 for the first month. If that appeals to you, then head to juleswyman.online/conscious conversations offer. juleswyman.online/conscious conversations offer to explore what's available for you through being part of a conscious community.
So when I was setting goals about losing weight, I didn't have an intention other than that's what I knew I was meant to do, was lose weight, or I was meant to exercise. So therefore I set the goal of I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week. And what we can end up doing is we've got no buy-in. We're not aligned really with the goal. It's there because it's a trend on social media. It's in all of the magazines and the newspapers, and there's however many programs on TV that are talking about this is what you need to be doing and this is how you want to do it. And what I started to notice was that's where the pressure came in, because I didn't feel like I was able to attain those things. When that shifted to me understanding intention, and an intention is about that purpose. It gives you a much more value-driven and adaptable way of living life. So for example, instead of my goal being it just being a single goal around what it is that you want to achieve is lose 10 pounds or however many kilos that might be, is that actually it became about the intention was to feel good in my body. And when I initially started with that, of feel good in my body, then inadvertently, knowing that was my intention, instead of it being, when it was just a goal to lose that weight, then I became very restricted on my food and was trying to push up the amount of exercise. And yeah, that could work, but there was a pressure because it was the outcome that was the only thing. Whereas when it was I wanted to feel good in my body, is that it gave me a check-in, basically. So anytime I didn't feel good in my body, it was like, oh, I don't feel good in my body right now. Okay, so what's going on? Actually, I could do with some stretching. That would feel good in my body. Or if you've listened to the podcast before, you know that I like dancing. So maybe it would be about putting a piece of music on and having a dance around the kitchen. Or maybe it was about, I was hungry about half an hour ago, so I had an apple. That was here. It was good. It's what I wanted. It felt good. It's that kind of thing. It then becomes that's what I mean by the adaptability and fluid around going to the gym, eating certain foods. Yes, they're great goals, losing the weight, but actually having that intention there really helped me go, does this help me feel good in my body or not? There was a check-in each time I was doing something. Now, over time, that then the intention that I started off with, I think that was probably about 5-6 years ago. But then what started to happen after that is then it became about longevity, or it became about health, or it became about doing things that strengthen my body. So the intention has slightly morphed each year when I've checked in. This year, that's actually not my focus. My focus is around my business. I'm going to give you a step process in a moment so that you can look at how to do this for yourself. And it enables you to start looking at what your goals are, and actually if you've got an intention behind them, or if the goals are a bit arbitrary and don't really belong to you. So when I go through that process, I'll share with you what my business intention is this year. But what happens if we are just goal setting? We can be so fixed on the outcome that anything that deviates from that can create an internal criticism, internal judgment. We might engage with shameful thinking, which basically ends up demotivating us. Whereas an intention, because it's got the fluidity and the adaptability, and it's more in alignment with who and how we are, that intention therefore then gives us an opportunity to go, oh, I don't feel good in my body right now. Oh yeah, that's because I've been sat down for an hour. Okay, well then I could move. So it gives us a fluidity to it in each and every moment. And that for me has maintained a sense of motivation. And then the changes that I've made, instead of it just being goal setting and must achieve this goal because I set that on the 31st of December, 2020, or 2021 or whatever it may be, it's become about, okay, what's the intention? And the clarity that I've had around that has meant that there's been so many more goals that have been ticked off because it's giving me a motivation, a direction of travel. So the other one that I would highlight with this is that, like with one of my clients, for example, their focus for many conversations has been very much on about, I must lose weight and I must get fit. And even though we've had the intentional conversation, you know, you're a coach, I want goals, that's what I'm focused towards. So that's where we've been looking at, with me seeding in intentions as we've gone along. And what's different one of the last conversations we had last month was actually they've gained the clarity for themselves of recognizing, I want an intention to have a healthy body. So I think her intention, if I remember correctly, is a really short statement, which is something along the lines of, I'm looking on here because I wrote it down and I now can't find it. Oh, there it is. I nourish my body. That's her intention. I nourish my body. And when we were conversing about that, talking about the difference between goal setting, is for her that nourishment then included going for walks, it included sleep, it included going for a bath, it included so much more than just it being about food and fitness. And that gave her more of it. The more we had this conversation, it was more an engagement, because it aligns with you then. It aligns with your value system and what it is that you're looking to do. So what I want to offer out to you is an overview of how to set intentions. Now, I do take quite a lot of time when I'm doing this, and I will write down my initial thoughts, and then it's like I'm testing out the words. Is that the right word? I don't automatically assume that the phrase I've written down is the right phrase. It usually takes me anywhere between 5 and 20 times of writing it down. Is that the word I'm really looking for? And it's only when you've got a phrase that you suddenly go, yeah. I actually did this with a client last week. And again, we were playing around with different phrases, and I'd offered one out and she was like, oh yeah, that sounds good. And I said, yeah, if that's the reaction, then that's not your phrase. And then a little while later, she came up with a phrase and she was like, oh yeah, I like that. And I'm like, that's the phrase then. It's not about my words. It's about your words and the intention. When the words are right, it will light you up. It will be like, yes, that's what it is. So the first thing that you want to do, giving yourself some space and time where you are not going to be interrupted. Even if you've got lots of commitments, then do this in little chunks. Just do the first bits and just keep going back over it. If you don't get it done by the 31st of January, that's absolutely fine, because you can set a new intention every week if you wanted to, every new moon, full moon, the beginning of every month. It doesn't have anything to do with the 1st of January. You can set them at any point. So the more that you play with these, then the more it will give you the opportunity to get used to doing them. So give yourself some time. Doesn't matter how long. There's no time pressure if it got to be done by the 1st of January. So the first thing you want to do is look at which area of your life is it that you really want to focus in on. And if I'd have asked myself this about 10, 15 years ago, I'd have gone, and this, and this, and this, and there'd have been a ton of different areas. I would advise not to have more than 2, especially initially. If you can, hone it down on 1. When you're really clear on your intention and you work towards that, in my experience, both personally and also professionally, is actually it then starts to ripple out and affect other things anyway. So I wouldn't worry too much. When I committed to sorting out my finances, weirdly, it had an impact on my health because my mindset's changing. That's also what intentions do, because it's in you're directing where your thinking is going in order for you to be able to engage with things in a different way. So therefore, by thinking differently around finances, I also inadvertently started thinking differently around health as well. So the first thing you want to do is focus in on a particular area. Is it to do with your business or work or career? Is it to do with family, friends, social time, community, connection, something like that? Is it to do with any kind of practices, maybe spiritual practices or exercise or fitness or health or your body or healing or anything like that? Is it to do with wealth, abundance, prosperity, finances? There's so many different areas. So narrow it down for yourself. And as I said, I was going to share with you relationships, obviously, could be another one. I've just spotted my notes. That's why that's just jumped into my mind. So it could be relationships, it could be love life, it could be friendships. Specifically narrow that down. And for me this year, one of my areas of focus is business. So from a professional perspective, it is business. That's what I've focused in on. I have a personal intention as well. So I literally only have 2 intentions this year, a personal one and a professional one. So if I look at it through the business lens, and I'm going to keep hold of that, and then I will share with you as we go through. So the question I would invite you to start thinking about once you've got that focus area is just jot down as many different things of what's important to you, what's most important to you about that thing for the forthcoming week, month, year, however long you're setting this intention for. So if you are, I don't know, if you're looking at prosperity, it might be about understanding finances. It might be paying off credit cards. It might be doing a money diary, understanding where your money goes, understanding money and how the financial system works, getting to grips with cryptocurrency or options or whatever. Don't ask me about any of that. But whatever it is, just jot down all those different things for you. What's most important for you right now in that area? Now, my suggestion would be that you just chuck out loads of different ideas and then walk away for 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day if you want to, and then come back and check each one of those. Are they yours, or are they an expectation that you've kind of taken on board? I should do my money because my partner's been nagging me, my boss has said something, my family members have said something, because my favorite influencer is focusing in on that, whatever it is. So just be very mindful that whether cross off anything that you're like, that's not why I'm doing it. That's not for me. That's because I'm thinking that I should do it for somebody else. This is about you being healthily selfish and focusing in on things that are for you. So make sure you laser that down and really check, is it yours? So when you get really clear, you then want to start looking at, and narrow it down. What's the most important thing for you? If I keep it to business is my area of focus. But there's loads of different things that I could be looking at there. But actually, when I look at it, once I've chucked all of those things down, when I hone it down into what's really important to me, it comes down to 3 things. And they are visibility, building strategic partnerships, and also increased recreational time. Again, if you've listened to the podcast, you'll know that I'm not brilliant at remembering to take holidays. So that's why that one's in there, is to remind me to take holidays. But the other two are, they are areas that I'm like, there's lots of different goals that can go under each of those, and that's what's important. So visibility, increased recreational time, and strategic partnerships. They're my three main things that I'm looking for. So you've got your one area, you're looking at what's important to you most, but then narrow it down to what's the top three. If you've got less than that, that's fine. If it's just one, that's fine, but no more than three is what you're really wanting to do. Then what you want to do is from that is create an intention. So you're listening out for yourself. And maybe what you can start to do is taking your area and your three bits of what's important to you right now, is writing down why is that important for you, and just give yourself the opportunity to do some automatic writing. How will my life be when those things happen? What's going to be important to me? What would I be seeing? What would be different? Write all of those things down. And again, then take a short break, cup of tea, go for a walk around the garden, come back. And look for any themes. What are you noticing? What's jumping out? Are there specific words? So, for example, I'm thinking of a conversation I had recently with a client, and there were two conversations that spring to mind. One, they were talking about consistency. It kept coming up over and over again in different parts of the conversation. Consistency. And another one was talking about receiving. So when we started to put their intentions together, they were the words that I was offering out for them to include, because they were really important. When it comes to the business, for me, what was important is about expansion. That was my word that I noticed in the theme with all of those, the visibility, the strategic partnerships, and even the increased recreation time. It's expansion. I want more of all of those things. So when I was writing out then the statement, that my intention, my statement of intent, I could put that in the present tense. So rather than I'm looking for expansion, it became I expand. That was very clear. That's what's going on. I expand. And my whole sentence, my whole statement of intent is I expand being of service. And that being of service is, by being visible, I'm of service to anyone who listens to the podcast, connects with me on social media, signs up to the newsletter, who comes on retreat, who works with me, is part of the Facebook groups, who joins the webinars, who comes for coaching, that I go when I go speaking. That being of service connects to all of those different things. That's the visibility side of things. Strategic partnerships. I want to be of service to those other people. So one of the things that I'm really passionate about is connecting other people with services, other people sharing great things that have made a difference to me. That's why I talk about Tropic Skincare, because that's what I use. It's fantastic. So it's those kind of strategic partnerships that I'm looking. So again, that becomes about being of service for myself, for the other person, for the service that we're using, etc., etc. But it's also that increased time off. That's being of service to me. That's part of my well-being. That's also for my clients as well, because if I'm taking that time off, I'm going to be coming back refreshed. So that whole statement, I expand being of service, incorporates all of those three things. So when you're looking, you've got your area of focus, the one thing that you want to focus on, whatever that may be, and then you've got why it's important to you. And then from that, you create, making sure that the statement of intent that you create is in the present tense. You want to be able to write it down and remember it, not that you have to go, oh, what was it again? It doesn't want to be more than 10 words, 7 words, 5 words if you can, because the more that you can narrow that down, then the more you're going to remember it. Doesn't mean to say that you can't put reminders up of post-it notes, or I've got somebody who I know does these beautiful pieces of artwork when they've got their statement of intent, because that's how they like to engage with it, and then they have a piece of artwork up. Other people who I know that just put it on their phones so that it's there and it pops up. Other people write it in their journals. There's lots of ways to remind you, but what you want to do is have it so that pretty much the moment that you've written down, you know what it is. It's there. And making sure it's more engaged with what it is that you want rather than what it is that you don't want. So if you're wanting to, I don't want to worry, then that's not a great intent. What you want is to maybe experience calm or to know peace. That's the angle that you want to be looking at it from. So rather than, I want to be less angry, frustrated and stressed, maybe it's, I kindly engage with the world, for example. There might be, make sure that it's what you're using are words that are what you want rather than what you don't want. And anywhere along the line, rather than this one goal, your goals will sit underneath that. So for me, from a business perspective, I've got loads of goals, different things that I need to do, want to do, step-by-step action things that I can tick off. But equally, I expand being of service. I can tick off today because I've replied to some emails, I've set up some calls with people, I've set up some meetings with people, I've recorded this podcast. There's already ticks that are happening within that. So it becomes this statement of intent is then, it's got this rolling achievements list that's going with it, rather than it being this one goal that I have to achieve. Because if I've got to lose 10 pounds, I can only celebrate that when I get to 10 pounds. I'm not able to celebrate it when I've only lost half a pound because I'm not at the goal yet. But if my intent is to be healthy and I've had an apple, then for me, that's healthy. So I've already got a tick there. I'm hoping that this is giving you an importance of understanding as to why shifting from goals to intentions has given me the opportunity to experience so much more joy in my day-to-day life. I'm engaged with life in a very different way, so that when a challenge arises, I'm far calmer to want to engage with it rather than getting frustrated if that challenge doesn't meet my goal or if it takes me away from my goal. Because I can look at it through the lens of that intent, which, as I've said, is aligned with my values. So that helps make things work in a very, very different way for me. And that's what I've noticed. And you don't have to overhaul your whole life. These small intentional shifts create lasting transformation. Truly, it astounds me every time I reflect on my life and where and how my life is now, even to where it was 5 years ago when I made the shift from goals to intentions. It blows my mind. The difference that this has made is just phenomenal and exponential. And I see it with clients time and time again. Intentions, in my view, empower you so that there's, as I say, you've got that rolling achievements list that you're ticking off. So there isn't that hanging, hovering fear of failure. They're all more in alignment with who you are and what it is that you want to achieve. So therefore you're living with far more authenticity. And if this resonates and if you want to give it a go, then please like this podcast, wherever platform that you're listening or watching this on. Share it with other people that you know that are stuck in that goal setting mindset, and maybe work on your intentions together so you both come up with a clear intention statement and share that in the comments. Remember to subscribe as well so that you get a notification of when the next podcast comes out. And I look forward to reading your comments and sharing your thoughts on the topic of the difference between goal setting and intention setting. And I'll see you on the next episode of Coming to Your Senses.